Hi, welcome to Stahls TV. Today I will be talking about the print, laminate, cut workflow. I'm Phil Tarsi. I'll be assisted by Taylor and Karen today. So let's talk about the need for lamination. Lamination is a thin film that is applied over top of your graphics to help protect them. It'll protect them from debris, from abrasion, other chemicals. So if you're going to be applying graphics in such an environment that's going to require lamination, this is how you would do it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to calibrate our print cut device. Today we're going to be using the Roland VersaCam VS300i series. So if you have a different device, then just refer to its manual for those instructions. So I'm going to ask Taylor to step over here and we will go through those calibrations. There we go. All right, so again, we want to do the calibrations. The first one we're going to do is the crop cut calibration. So in order to do that, you can see my display panel. I'm going to go to the menu button, scroll to my cutting menu, hit to the right, go down to crop cut adjust. And now I'm going to perform the test. It's important to do this first so that way the optical eye can be registered over the printed area. So once the machine performs this, we're going to weed out that rectangle or that square that it's going to print, and then we'll see if we need to make any adjustments. Now if you have a Roland BN20, you would have to go into the utility program to access the crop cut adjust feature. And we have all of these service level videos on Stahls TV as well. I mean, you can refer to them in your manual that comes with your device, or you can go to Stahls TV and see these videos on how to perform these adjustments. All right, so the crop mark, it just read it with the optical eye, performed the cut, and now it's going to forward it out. So let's open up the cover here, and we'll just pick out. So as you can see, it's cutting where it needs to be. There's a little black line around all four sides. Now if your calibration was off and you were heavy on one side or a top or bottom, you'd come back to the control panel here, hit your down arrow to settings, hit to the right, and then you always move towards the heavy line. So if it was heavy on the right side, I would adjust my right arrow key a few clicks and then hit enter and then go back to the menu button and go back and perform another test cut. And you move in small increments until you have everything set where you need it to be. And then once that's done, we're ready to move into the print cut adjust. Let me close the cover and we'll perform that action. So the first one was the optical eye for the crop cut when you print with registration marks. The second one is just your print cut adjust, and this is affected just to make sure that you have a nice registration along the entire length of the material. And this is something you should probably do on a regular basis anyway when you're just performing regular print and cut. So today, since this lamination is used mostly on decals, I'm using the Dorsal 3.5 mil premium gloss white from Imprintables Warehouse. They actually handle all of our sign, banner, and decal material and all the laminates that you would possibly need. So if you have questions on any kind of materials, you can always contact Imprintables and talk to one of their sales reps. All right, so it looks like the print is complete. It's going to pull it back and now perform the cut again. All right, so we'll just lift the cover here. We'll weed out boxes. It's looking pretty good so far. Yep. So again, you're looking for a little black line around all four sides just to make sure that you're within those parameters. And again, back here on the control panel, if you needed to make some adjustments, you just hit your down arrow to settings, hit to the right, and then the F is your feed. That is front to back, scan is left to right, and then you just adjust accordingly on the keypad, and then hit enter to save your changes, and then run another test print and confirm that the image is where it needs to be. All right, so everything looks good. Now we're going to jump over and actually show how to add a cut line and set up the file. So Karen, if you could go to Desktop Presenter, please. Thank you. All right, so I have an image here. It's just a vector graphic. I'm assuming, I think most of you have print cut devices, so you're probably familiar with how to add a cut line. Again, if you're not familiar or if you need assistance, you can always contact us or go to stahlstv.com. We have some videos on how to add cut lines to your images. So basically what I'm looking to do here is find a vector path. I have this black line here, and now I want to make this my cut line. So I'm going to go over here to my library, hover over the cut contour swatch, and since I'm using Coreldraw, I'm going to use the right click for the outline tool, and now it has changed that to my cut line. So before I can export this, I just want to group it all together, and then File and Export. And then we'll just save it out to the desktop. And we'll hit export. So from this screen, the EPS export screen, again, I don't have to make any changes, just hit OK, and then it'll process the file. So that's done. So we're going to jump into VersaWorks and we're going to start setting up our file. So again, I have the material loaded, have my base point set, and then I'm going to go to File and Add Job to QA. We'll go out and we'll find our file and we'll just bring it in. So once the file is brought into VersaWorks, it's going to open, display it here. So we're going to double click on it, and we're going to take it to the layout. It'll open up in your layout screen. So the first thing we want to do is click on Get Media With, and then I want to populate it, how many copies I need. So I'm just going to do 3. So, and also I've centered it on the media, so it centers accordingly. So from here, I actually tile spaced. I just spread them out a little bit further so there's a little bit extra room. And now I'm ready to go down to the second tab, which is my Quality tab. And I want to select the appropriate media type. So since this is a decal material, I'll hit my drop-down menu, go to a glossy calendared vinyl, because you want to make sure you have the right settings. And for today's demonstration, I'll just do a high speed, but normally you would do either a standard or possibly a high quality print. And then color management, max impact, that gives you a more bold saturation. So we'll just select that as well. So the next tab I'm going to click on is my Mark tab. I want to print with the crop marks. And that's the whole reason for this demonstration, to show you how to print with crop marks, take it off, laminate it, bring it back in, and cut. So we'll select crop marks, and then we can go down to our cut controls. Now, the normal operation is print and cut. Well, we don't want to print and cut at this point. We just want to print only. So I'll select print only, and then it's done. It's ready to go. So I'll click on OK in the lower right-hand corner. It takes me back to my main screen, and then we're going to click on the print button. It'll rip and print the file. So we'll just start that process now, and then we'll switch back over to the live camera. Okay, so the printer's ready to go. It'll start. Now, it didn't display the crop marks whenever I selected to print with them in our VersaWorks, but it will print them here shortly. All right, so while this is printing, it'll only take a few minutes. Do we have any questions so far?
Yes. Phil, could you recommend a laminator for the viewers?
I can. We offer the Royal Sovereign lineup, and that again is through Imprintable's warehouse. So for complete information and details, you can contact Imprintable's warehouse, ask for one of the sales reps. I would probably ask for Adam Yukish or Lee Tringes. They'd be able to give you all the specs and details about the different laminators that Royal Sovereign offers. All right, so as you can see now, it's printing the crop marks. And you also notice that in the right-hand corner next to that first crop mark, there's a rectangle. That's just to help you with orientation whenever you're putting the material back into the printer. All right, so starting to print our image. So there's a lot of different materials. There's your calendared vinyl, there's cast vinyl, specialty vinyl, and so there's appropriate laminates for each of those. So the cast vinyl, that's for car wraps, things that you want that have a compound curves. So you would use, and it's a thinner material, so you'd need a thinner laminate to apply to it. Same as calendar vinyl, that's for more flat applications or very simple curves, and again it has its own laminate. I've read some articles, it's recommended that depending on the type of material and the laminate you're using, you may want to print with your crop marks, let it outgas for about 24 hours and then laminate and then return to the cutter for the cut portion. This is just to make sure that the ink is completely cured or dried, and then there shouldn't be any issues with shrinkage or curling once the laminate is applied. So again, you'd want to check with the manufacturer specs on that material just for those details. All right, so the image is done printing. It's now starting to print the second set of crop marks. Okay, we have another question.
Yes. One of your viewers was thinking about getting either a VS300 or VS540. Is there any difference other than size in what you're doing here? Is this for a beginner or a more experienced user?
There's no difference between the two units other than the size. I mean, they're going to have the exact same ink, cutting tools, everything. It's just the width of the machine. So if you're planning on doing some larger graphics or car wraps or large banners, the 54 inch is probably going to work better for you. As far as what I'm trying to do here to demonstrate, you know, it seems difficult at first, but once you do it a few times, it's really pretty simple. So I wouldn't say that it's a higher end type operation. So what I'm going to do now is remove this print from the printer, but we're in a circulating ink mode at the moment. Never fails. But what I want to do once this is done, okay, here we go. I want to forward out the material a little bit just so my crop marks are out from underneath this cover, because I need some extra material on the back end. So when we reload it, there's sensors, and I'll show them to you here in a second. You need to make sure that the end of sheet sensor is covered. If not, it will not perform the operation. So I'll go to Function, scroll down to Sheet Cut, and hit Enter. All right, so here's the front paper sensor that's located on the front of the machine, and then we're not going to be able to see it, but underneath the paper in the back, as the material rolls up over, there's another sensor, and it looks just like that, and that's to let the printer know that if the paper is at the end of the sheet, it'll stop, so that way it doesn't continue to feed it out and then print onto the platen. So what we'll do now is we're going to move over here, and now we need to put our laminate. Now, I don't have a laminator here, so I'm basically going to perform this with using some mask that we use for our heat transfer vinyl. So we'll just use this. But it'll give you the idea of what we're trying to accomplish. So I'll just split this. All right, so I'm going to take my mask and then just lay it down over top of the prints. And if it covers the crop marks, that's fine, because that's going to happen with a laminator as well. It's going to laminate the entire sheet. And now I'm just going to squeegee out any bubbles, and I want to make sure that I get a good adhesion here over top of the crop marks, because if there's any kind of air or anything there, you could get some problems when trying to reload it to get to read the crop marks. So now we're going to take this back to the printer. So I'm going to remove the paper that's already, the roll that's in there, and I'm going to reinsert this. So like I mentioned before, we have the first crop mark with that rectangle, so that's going to be in the position closest to the print head. So I'm just going to adjust my pinch rollers. And then, if you can see, here's the cutting strip. This runs the entire length of the print area. And I want to make sure that I load my material back in with that crop mark on top of that cutting strip. And that'll just help when the machine with the optical eye tries to find that. So we'll lock this back down, close the cover, and then it'll do its normal come across and look for the width. So it's just the normal setup procedure here. It's going across looking for the pinch rollers. And I've done it a couple different ways. I've actually just let the machine go back to its normal home position and not set a base point. And I've also brought the cutting tool out and I've positioned it right over top of that first crop mark. So that way it knows where to start looking for those registration points. But what I want to do before I start this is I want to do a test cut, because now I'm cutting through a laminate and through the material, so I want to make sure I have enough force on my blade. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit. I know it's not going to cut into my design, but I'm definitely over top of the laminate. So I'm going to set my base point there, and I'm going to go into Function, Cut Configuration, and now I'm going to scroll down to my force. And we're currently set at 75 grams of force. Well, I know that that's not going to do it. So we'll just jump up to 100 and hit enter. And then we'll go back, go to test cut, and we'll start with our test cut. Now again, we want to make sure that our test cut, so it's not quite enough yet because that is a little hard to pop out, so I'm going to increase the force, and I don't really see any scoring on my carrier sheet there. So I'll just jump back down to force, and I'll jump it up to 105 grams and hit enter. And then we can perform another one, but I feel confident that that will do it. So we'll close the cover again, and I'm going to reset my base point right over top of that first crop mark. So you could do that test cut before you even set your base point, just to make sure you have it where you want it. Do your test cut, then bring it back. All right, so now if Karen can take us over to Desktop Presenter again. All right, so we're back at our main screen of VersaWorks. So I'm going to double click on my file that we just printed. So now as you can see, we're still in the Cut Control tab. We do not want to do print or print and cut. We just need to cut only. So we'll select that. And as you can see, it's removed the print file and it just leaves us with the cut file. So from here, I'm just going to click on OK. Go back to the lower left-hand portion and hit print. And then it'll start. So if we can jump back over to live camera, there we go. All right, here comes the cutting tool with the optical eye. It's looking for those crop marks. So it has to find all 4 registration points before cutting. So there we are at the second one. All right, it's found the 4th point, and now it's going to perform the cut. Now, if it does not find the crop mark, there could be a couple reasons why. It could be because a glare, maybe from a bright light, or if it's close to the window and the sun's coming in. I've seen instances where with that laminate, it'll cause a glare, and then it will not allow the optical eye to see. So, you know, you can either dim the lights, close the window blinds, give that a try. Hopefully that would remedy the situation. And then it could also possibly be that the voltage on the crop mark board needs to be recalibrated. Unfortunately, that would require a service technician to come in and do it, but I've seen that. I've done that myself. I've had to go into shops and recalibrate that board and actually replace it. It's not an expensive board or very hard to do, but it sometimes is just necessary. All right, so we've removed our prints with the laminate, and now I'm ready just to pull it out. So as you can see, I had a little bit of a overbleed with my ink just to make sure we did not have any registration issues. And then our finished product. So we have the Dorsal Premium Gloss White Vinyl with the Roland EcoSol Max 2 inks, which are rated for 3 to 5 years outdoors unlaminated, but now that we've added the laminate to it, they're rated for 5 to 7 years. So again, the only time you'd really want to do this is if this is going to be in an area, an environment that's going to get dirty, or it's going to have chemicals possibly get on it, or abrasion such as a football helmet, lacrosse helmet, something like that. That's when you'd want to laminate your decals. All right, Karen, any questions on that process? No questions? Okay, let's check for time here. All right, well, let's go into another little process where, since we did a print and then we cut right to the ink line. There's another one where you can actually do a little bit of an overbleed, and I have an example of that. If we can go to the overhead shot. There we go. All right. So what we're looking for here, again, if you want to have the laminate overlap or go to the outside of your print, and that'll help protect your graphic a little bit better, because the laminate itself will then be applying directly to the finished surface, such as the football helmet. So if you can see that, there's a thin layer on the outside of our decal. So I'll do a demonstration on how to do that. So if we can go to Desktop Presenter, please. So I'll jump into Coreldraw, and we'll open up a new file. So here we have, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. I have them laid out. I have them already with our first cut line. So this is our cut contour line. And then what I do is I copy this to the second page, and I've basically just taken that cut line and I've expanded it out, or I've contoured it to the outside, so that way I have a second cut path. So just to show you this, if I copy this and go back to my first page and paste it, you'll see that we have two sets of cut lines. We have the original cut line, which is going to cut the graphic itself, and then this second cut line we'll bring in as a separate file, and we'll apply that once the laminate is onto our decal material. So you'll save both of these out as individual files. So I'll take this first file without that secondary cut line, I'll export it out, and then I'll go to this page and I'll export this set of files. And it's important that you don't change your registration. So if I'm copying from the first page to the second page, when I do that function, I'll copy and paste. I always hit enter. I never try to manually place it, because if you try to move it, your registration is going to be off. Roland also has some documentation on how to do this as well. If anyone's interested, we could email you that PDF. So again, once you have this done, we're going to go back to our VersaWorks, and then we'll go to our file. So instead of printing this again, I have a copy already ready to go. So I'll just walk you through the setup. So we'll go to File, we'll go to Layout, get Media Width, and I've centered it on the media. And then again, you're going to change your media type. You're going to go to your mark, and you're going to print with your crop marks. And then you're going to go to your cut controls. Now, the difference here is we're going to print and cut on the first pass as well, because we want to weed off the excess material. So we'll select Print and Cut, and then I also want to cut image boundaries. So where you see this blue box, it's going to do a cut around that as well, and that's going to allow us to weed off the extra material, but it's going to leave our crop marks still on the page. That's important. If you don't do that, then you'd have to manually trim this out and leave the crop marks on the page. So cut image boundaries, and then you hit OK, and then print. So we'll jump back to our camera. All right, so here's our image, printed with crop marks and contoured cut. So now here's that cut image boundary box I was talking about. So that gives me the ability to weed out the excess material. And that's important, because if you don't do that, then you're not going to get the laminate to overflow like we want it to do. So we have that. Now it's time to apply the laminate. Try to center it up and lay it down. And again, since we're using the hand squeegee, we'll give it a nice firm pressure to make sure that we have it applied. And again, over top of the crop marks. And then we're ready to take this back into the VersaCam. So again, you want to slide it back into place. You want to line it up over that cutting strip. Make sure your pinch rollers where they need to be. We'll lock it down and close the cover. So we'll jump back over to Desktop Presenter. And now I brought in that second file, which is just the cut only. So as you can see, the cut lines here, it's not showing any print file because we didn't have a print file associated with that second page. It's just the cut only. And again, before you go ahead and perform this, you probably want to do your test cut. I'll just drop the pressure a little bit because we're just going through the laminate itself at this point. We don't have to cut the... Okay. So I'll go ahead and hit OK and print, and it'll come out and you'll see it's going to find the crop marks and then do the cutting. We have another question?
We have a couple questions coming in. Is a laminator a recommended purchase with the purchase of a printer cutter?
If you are planning on doing decals that require lamination, I would definitely consider it, yes. I mean, if you're just doing some basic bumper stickers, window decals, things like that, probably not. But if it's going to be in an environment like I mentioned earlier that's going to come into contact with other surfaces, you know, and have some abrasion or chemicals, yeah, I would definitely consider a laminator with the purchase.
Is there any difference in the process for a BN20?
It's basically the same. Basically the same workflow because you're using VersaWorks, you know. The only difference is whenever you're doing your adjustments, it's done in that utility program, not on board. All right, so as we can see, it's performing that cut. All right, so we'll remove it. And then we can take these out. And then I don't know if you can see, but then there's the overbleed of the laminate, so that way it'll adhere directly to the finished surface and just not be on top of the decal itself. So that workflow is a little bit more detailed, a little bit more complex. If you have further questions on that, you know, we'd be more than glad to talk with you one-on-one and help you get set up. And if you have any questions on the calibrations, the operation, you know, of this function, you know, feel free to give us a call or call our tech support department, and they'll be able to, they could actually remote access into your computer and assist with that at that time. So any other questions, Karen? No? All right, well, thank you very much for attending. I do appreciate it. Again, my name is Phil Tarsi, and if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. Thanks. Have a great day.